Hello and welcome. You're watching News9 Live with me, Neha Khanna. Let's begin with the top stories we're tracking at this hour. Around 2,000 people from Myanmar have entered Mizoram following a fresh airstrike by the Myanmar army in the bordering areas along the Indo-Myanmar border. Several nationals from Myanmar who were injured in this army airstrike have crossed the international border and entered Mizoram's Champhai district and were admitted to hospital for treatment. The military action comes as Myanmar's military junta is facing its biggest test since taking power in a 2021 coup after three ethnic minority forces launched a coordinated offensive in late October, capturing some towns and military posts. Last week, the military-installed president said Myanmar was at risk of breaking apart because of an ineffective response to the rebellion. The current military operation is being carried out against the Chinland Defence Forces, which was a pro-democracy militia formed after the military junta coup in 2021. The military junta forces are increasingly stretched amid mounting armed opposition fueled by anger over the coup and the crackdown.
Yesterday evening, that is 13th of November, they captured the two Myanmar posts by the PDF. As a result, Myanmar army start taking shelter towards Mizoram. And 39 of them surrendered to Mizoram police last evening. As per order from MHA, we hand them over to border guarding force, that is some rifle, yesterday late in the evening. This morning again, we still capture two Myanmar army, and apart from that, another one is also injured, that is already admitted in Champhai Civil Hospital yesterday evening itself. So the total Myanmar army who got surrendered in the hand of Mizoram police are 42 in numbers. But as I already said, they are handed over to some rifle, and the government of India will decide their fate.
Sir, can you tell us about the civilians seeking asylum in Zokothar?
Yes, now there are as many as more than 5,000 people who took refuge to Zokothar and refuge. These are the two villages along the border line. And we also got civilian injury, several civilian injury, as many as about 20 are injured. 8 of them are taken to Aizawl for better medical treatment, and the rest they are treated there at Champhai. And one is also injured by stray bullet, and who got succumbed to his injury yesterday evening.
Sir, is the border still having commotion right now, or is it at peace? What is the status right now?
Since last night, there is no more commotion. Yes, since it was already taken over by PDF, and there is no Myanmar army to retaliate this against the PDF. And now it is quite calm, but we don't know whether Myanmar army will attack from the air. We cannot rule out airstrike at present. If Myanmar government is willing, that is still there. But at present, there is no more commotion, and it is quite calm. Yeah, that is the present situation. But we are looking after this refugee, and the situation there is, although it is calm, it is not yet normal.
Rescue teams are working non-stop to save the lives of 40 workers trapped inside the Uttarkashi tunnel. The workers have been trapped since Sunday after the under-construction tunnel collapsed. Rescuers are trying to create an escape passage for the trapped workers. The tunnel is estimated to be 40 meters. Officials say around 21 meters of a slab blocking the tunnel has been removed, and 19 meters of passage is yet to be cleared to reach the workers. Food and oxygen have been delivered to the trapped workers through pipes. The rescue teams are planning to push pipes that are 900 millimeters in diameter by boring a hole into the heap of the debris. The pipes are said to be wide enough for a worker to squeeze through. The big challenge for the rescue workers is to bore through a heap of concrete and metal bars in the debris to reach the workers. The trapped workers hail from Bihar, Jharkhand, Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Odisha, Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh.
देखिए वहां पे ऐसा लगता है देखने से हार्ड रॉक नहीं है, सॉफ्ट रॉक है और फॉल्ट है, जिसके कारण टनल के बाद, टनल तो काफी अंदर तक हो गई है, उसके बाद वहां चीजें कोलैप्स की हुई है। जैसा बताया गया वहां पर रिप डाला गया था, रॉक बोल्टिंग की गई थी, प्राइमरी लाइनिंग भी हो गई थी। उसके बाद भी चूंकि सॉफ्ट रॉक है, चूरा जैसा वहां पर मटेरियल है, वो प्रेशर के कारण वो कोलैप्स हुआ है। उसके में तो आगे हम करेंगे उसका ट्रीटमेंट, लेकिन फिलहाल अभी जो हमारी प्राइमरी रिस्पांसिबिलिटी है, लोगों को सेफ बाहर निकालना। दो तरह से हम कार्रवाई कर रहे हैं, तीन तरह से। एक तो सबसे पहले ऑक्सीजन अंदर भेजना, पानी, खाना, वो भेजा जा रहा है पाइप के थ्रू। दूसरा है जो हम मटेरियल है उसको अभी जितना हम निकाल सकते हैं जेसीबी से या मशीनें जो हमारी ऑलरेडी है उससे हम निकाल रहे हैं। तीसरा देहरादून से ऑगर मशीन चली है जिससे कि हम बोर करेंगे, जैसे हम बनाते हैं ना सीवर लाइन बोर करके, उस तरह से बोर करेंगे और 2.5 फीट डायमीटर का पाइप डालेंगे और उससे लोगों को हम निकाल लेंगे। तो ये जैसा बताया गया 24 घंटे वो लगेगा पाइप डालने में, बोर करके पाइप डालने में। तो कल रात तक या परसों सुबह तक हम उम्मीद कर रहे हैं लोग सेफली बाहर आ जाएंगे।
जो हमारे मजदूर भाई वहां पे फंसे हुए हैं, जो हमारे कंपनी के जो लोग फंसे हुए हैं, उनको बचाने की जरूरत है। तो उसके लिए लगातार प्रयास किया जा रहा है और उसमें तमाम टेक्निकल जो लोग वहां पर गए हैं उनसे राय ली जा रही है कि कैसे तत्काल जो है इस रिस्क को जो है किया जाए। तो उसके लिए खोलने के लिए अभी हमारे जो कई लोगों ने कहा कि जो बड़ा वाला पाइप होता है स्टील का, उस पाइप को गोल में घुमाकर शायद हम वार पार हो जाएंगे। और लगभग मुझे लग रहा कि अभी पाइप यहाँ पर पहुंचे नहीं है, उसके लिए हरिद्वार से लोडिंग होगी, शाम तक इसमें टाइम लगेगा। तो मुझे ये लग रहा कि कल सुबह तक उम्मीद है कि हम जो है मजदूरों को जो है वहां से निकाल पाएंगे।
गया है अब जो है ह्यूम पाइप्स की जो डिमांड की गई थी कल टेक्निकल एक्सपर्ट्स के द्वारा, 800 mm डाया के होते हैं वो ह्यूम पाइप्स, वो अभी हरिद्वार से चल दिए हैं और वो लेट नाइट यहाँ पे आ जाएंगे। और उसके बाद से जो हम ह्यूम पाइप्स को इंसर्ट करेंगे मलबे के बीच में और उसके थ्रू जो है कल शाम तक ऐसा उम्मीद जता रहे हैं टेक्निकल एक्सपर्ट्स के द्वारा कि वो 40 लोगों को हम सेफली इवैक्यूट कर देंगे। बहरहाल जो उनकी जो बेसिक एमिनिटीज की डिमांड है जैसे ऑक्सीजन और पानी और खाना, वो उनको पाइप्स के थ्रू रेगुलरली भिजवाया जा रहा है और उनसे बातचीत भी की जा रही है। तो एक साइकोलॉजिकल कनेक्ट भी उनसे हो चुका है कि और उनको समझाया जा रहा है कि उनको जल्दी से रेस्क्यू कर लिया जाएगा। तो वो सेफ एंड साउंड है, अभी तक मैं यही आपको बता सकता हूँ।
The tunnel, which spans 4.5 kilometers, was built to cut the distance between Uttarkashi and Yamunotri by 26 kilometers. Once finished, is expected to slash travel time by an entire hour. However, on the 12th of November, the tunnel suffered a collapse, trapping 40 workers inside. The labourers are stuck in a 2-kilometer stretch inside the tunnel. This particular section has enough oxygen to sustain the workers for another 5 to 6 days. The cave-in is about 55 meters from the entrance of the tunnel. So far, the rescue workers have managed to clear out 21 meters of debris, but 7 meters of that has been undone as more debris fell as the workers carried on with the excavation. At the moment, the cleared area stands at around 14 meters from the entrance. The plan is to rescue the trapped workers, involving breaking through the collapsed debris by digging. The rescue teams are planning to bore 900 millimeter diameter steel pipes through the debris, creating a passage for the workers to crawl out. To prevent further collapse, the tunnel roof is being reinforced with concrete. Meanwhile, essential supplies like oxygen and food are being provided through an existing water pipe, ensuring the trapped workers have enough vital resources to survive.
The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being.
The war between Israel and Hamas has entered the 39th day today. Let's get you all the latest developments. More than 11,200 Palestinians and 1,200 Israelis have been killed in the war so far. More than 4,600 children have been killed in Gaza. One child has been killed every 10 minutes on an average in the last 38 days, or rather 39 days since the war began. Reports say 46 Israeli Defense Forces soldiers have been killed since the ground operation began in Gaza. Close to 250 people, most of them Israelis, are currently being held hostage by Hamas. Over 558 trucks have been let into Gaza in the last few days. The United Nations says its mission could come to a halt because of a lack of fuel. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has repeatedly pushed back against calls for a ceasefire by the international community. Reports coming in suggest Israeli troops have captured the Gazan parliament. The Israel Defense Minister has said Hamas has lost control of Gaza. US President Joe Biden said hospitals must be protected and called for less intrusive action by Israeli forces. The World Health Organization has sounded an alert after Gaza hospitals have gone out of service. Israel continues its military operations in Gaza, with northern Gaza showing signs of widespread destruction. Israel has declared war on Hamas more than a month. In fact, this happened more than a month ago after Hamas terrorists rampaged through southern Israel, killing 1,200 people, mostly civilians. The Israeli government has warned the residents of North Gaza to move to the south as it continues to engage in street combat with the Hamas operatives. Several rockets that were launched towards Israel from Gaza on the 13th of November were intercepted by the Israeli Iron Dome air defense system. This defense system has been relied upon by Israel to protect itself from unguided rockets launched from Gaza, especially since the beginning of this war on the 7th of October. The Israeli Defense Forces have released footage showcasing their actions in Gaza, including strikes on Hamas targets and infrastructure. According to the IDF, operations in the Gaza Strip are ongoing, with 4,300 strikes carried out by their aircraft and ground forces. These strikes targeted anti-tank missile launch posts, tunnel shafts, terrorist infrastructure sites, structures rigged with explosives, and Hamas command and control centers. The Israeli military fired at what it said were terrorist positions near the border with Lebanon after Hezbollah fighters fired rockets into Israel, injuring civilians and once again raising the specter of an escalation. Here's a report.
Explosions thundered and massive plumes of smoke billowed after the Israeli military said it struck militant positions along the border with Lebanon on Sunday. Israel's military said the strikes were retaliation after Lebanese-based fighters fired anti-tank missiles, injuring a number of Israeli civilians. The conflict in Gaza has ignited renewed clashes along Israel's northern border with Lebanon, which has seen the worst fighting since 2006. Israel's military on Sunday released footage of what it said were strikes on buildings it says were Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. Sunday's exchanges of fire come a day after Israel's defense minister Yoav Gallant warned Hezbollah against, quote, dragging Lebanon into a war. He said, quote, what we are doing in Gaza, we can do in Beirut. Israeli forces have been battling Palestinian fighters in the Gaza Strip for the past month after the Hamas militant group launched a surprise attack on Israeli communities that killed 1,200 people, mostly civilians. Israel responded with devastating airstrikes on the Gaza Strip that the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry says have killed more than 11,000 people, around 40% of them children. The bloodshed has raised fears of a second front between Israel and Hezbollah. We are checking. In an address on Saturday, Hezbollah leader Syed Hassan Nasrallah boasted about the group's weaponry and pledged that the front in the south against its sworn enemy would remain active.
في لبنان نستخدم المسيرات الهجومية الانقضاضية.
The Israeli military has said it will help in evacuating babies who are trapped in Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital. The announcement was made by the Israeli military spokesperson, Daniel Hagari. Listen in.
We're speaking directly and regularly with the hospital staff. The staff of the Shifa hospital has requested that tomorrow we will help the babies in the pediatric department to get to a safer hospital. We will provide the assistance needed. There is no siege, I repeat, there is no siege on the Shifa hospital. The east side of the hospital is open on El Wade Street for the safe pass of Gazans who wish to leave the hospital.
This announcement by Israel comes after several international humanitarian organizations have called upon the Israeli government to cease its unrelenting assault on Gaza's healthcare system.
Thousands of people seeking safety in southern Gaza fled the enclave's main hospital on Saturday as fighting continued in the area for the second day. This man says he lost his son in gunfire and that he had to keep moving, leaving his body at the site.
It's more of a war zone here. It's continuous bombardment for more than 24 hours.
Speaking to Reuters by phone, Palestinian senior plastic surgeon Dr. Ahmed al-Mokhalalati said most of the hospital staff and people sheltering at Gaza's largest hospital, Al-Shifa, had left, but 500 patients were still there. A Palestinian health ministry spokesman said Israeli shelling had killed a patient in intensive care, and fighting was limiting people's ability to move. Palestinian officials said 2 babies had died and dozens more were at risk after fuel ran out on Saturday. At a news conference, Chief Israeli military spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said the military will help evacuate babies trapped there. In this video released by the Israeli army, defense official Colonel Moshe Tetro says there are clashes between Israel Defense Forces troops and Hamas operatives around the hospital, but the Israeli military denied endangering it. Israel said earlier that doctors, patients, and thousands of evacuees who have taken refuge at the hospitals in northern Gaza must leave so it can tackle Hamas gunmen who it says have placed command centers under and around them. Hamas denies using hospitals in this way. Meanwhile, Hamas said it had completely or partially destroyed more than 160 Israeli military targets in Gaza, including more than 25 vehicles in the past 48 hours. But an Israeli military spokesperson said Hamas had lost control of northern Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu repeated in a press conference on Saturday his aim that Israel take security control over Gaza for an indefinite period, saying we won't stop until the mission is completed. Dr. Rick Brennan, the regional emergency director of the World Health Organization, says the situation is desperate.
50% of those hospitals are non-functioning right now. Those that are functioning are working well below their capacity because of a lack of fuel, a lack of medicines, a lack of water and necessary medical supplies. Doctors, nurses are completely exhausted and overwhelmed, and a number of the hospitals are under attack.
As the humanitarian situation worsened, Gaza's border authority announced that the Rafah land crossing into Egypt would reopen on Sunday for foreign passport holders after being closed on Friday.
The World Health Organization is reporting that the Al-Shifa hospital has been without water for 3 days and is not functioning as a hospital anymore. Let's take a look at why Al-Shifa is so important to the Israeli Defense Forces and its goals in the Gaza Strip as they combat Hamas. Now, control of Al-Shifa hospital is a key Israeli military and political aim. Israel says Hamas has crucial bunkers and infrastructure on the premises of the hospital. The IDF has alleged that Hamas is using patients and medical staff as human shields. However, carrying out an offensive on Al-Shifa comes with huge diplomatic risks for Israel. The United States has made it abundantly clear that healthcare facilities in Israel must be, or rather in Gaza, must be protected. This puts tremendous pressure on Israel which claims that it's not targeting medical facilities, but the headquarters of Hamas, which is in fact located in bunkers under the Al-Shifa hospital. Israel also claims that the terror group is using patients, medical staff and thousands of displaced Palestinians as human shields at this very hospital. The Israeli Defense Forces have announced delivery of 300 liters of fuel to Al-Shifa for urgent medical purposes. They said Hamas, in fact, stopped the hospital from accepting the fuel and that Hamas was looking to siphon off the fuel for their own military purposes. After Israel's latest attacks on Al-Shifa, health officials and people trapped inside Gaza's largest hospital rejected Israel's claims that it was helping babies and others evacuate, as was reported by the Associated Press. The World Health Organization has called for an immediate ceasefire in light of the situation. Israeli tanks have taken up positions at the gates of Gaza's city's main hospital, which Israeli forces say sits atop the Hamas headquarters. A Gaza health official at Al-Shifa hospital said more than 30 patients have died in the last 3 days because of a lack of electricity, and added that snipers and drones are making it impossible for them to move. Here's a report.
Inside Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital, rows of tiny newborns, some premature and wrapped in cloth for warmth. They're in grave danger with each passing minute. They've been taken out of their incubators because the hospital doesn't have enough power. Outside the hospital, Israeli tanks, which took up positions at its gates on Monday. Israel says Al-Shifa sits on top of a Hamas headquarters, using the hospital's patients as human shields, which Hamas denies. This video from Israel's military is said to show its soldiers delivering fuel for the hospital. Israel says it attempted to evacuate the babies, but was blocked by Hamas. Dr. Ahmed El-Mokhalalati is a surgeon that's been caring for them. He says they're slowly dying.
Currently, we have 36 units survived, which means we have lost 3 over the last 24 hours. They are not that much covered in a way that temperature is not controlled. The only adjusted thing is the AC and the heater one. They will be crying. These ones, we feed them through a tube. We call it NG tube, trying to feed them. So they are literally in a very bad situation where you slowly kill them unless someone interferes to adjust or to improve their situation.
Al-Shifa, which is Gaza's main hospital, has been a major hotspot of the war for weeks, taking in wounded or the homeless. The Gaza Health Ministry spokesperson, who's inside the hospital, said Monday that it had lost 32 patients over 3 days from the conditions, including the infants. They also say Israeli drones and snipers are firing into the hospital, making it impossible for medics to move around the halls, which Reuters could not immediately verify.
US President Joe Biden has said the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City must be protected, and he hopes there will be less intrusive action. Biden's statement to reporters came at an event at the Oval Office, and this as Israeli tanks took up positions at the gates of Gaza City's main hospital, the chief target now in Israel's battle to seize control of northern Gaza, where medics have said patients, including newborns, are dying for lack of fuel.
You know, I have not been reluctant in expressing my concerns what's going on. And it's my hope and expectation that there will be less intrusive action relative to the hospital. We're in contact and we're with the Israelis. Also, there's an effort to take this pause to deal with the release of prisoners. And that's being negotiated as well with the Qataris are engaged, and so I remain somewhat hopeful. But the hospital must be protected.
The Israeli army has provided evidence demonstrating that Hamas uses hospitals as terror command centers and weapons storage facilities. Military spokesperson Daniel Hagari inspected the Rantisi hospital in Gaza, showcasing the weaponry and ammunition kept inside the hospital premises. Take a look.
This is Rantisi Hospital. And this is the place where I showed you the tunnel. I want you to see. Look at what Hamas is holding inside the hospital. I want you to understand, this kind of gear is a gear for a major fight. People shooting RPGs from hospitals. This is Hamas firing RPGs for hospitals. The world has to understand who is Israel fighting against. They were all used in the massacre of the 7th of October. They even have bullets in this motorcycle. So they came back from the massacre on the 7th of October. We can see the ventilation air that was done improvisely to this area. And we can see infrastructures that was built in here. You're now entering into the room where we suspect the hostages were being held. I want you to look at this room. People are putting curtains with nothing above, just wall. No reason to put here a curtain unless you want to film hostages and deliver movies. Says, we are in an operation. The operation against Israel started in the 7th of October. This is a Guardian list where every terrorist writes his name and every terrorist has his own shift. Next to a house of a terrorist, this is one of the senior terrorists who is the head of the operational naval operations that led the raids into Israel. His house is 200 yards from the hospital of Rantisi. Next to his house, there is a tunnel. The tunnel is let down more than 20 meters down. The rowboat found a door that is bulletproof, it's explosives proof, so it looks like a hard evidence, a clear evidence that the hospital direction is connected. This is a covered tunnel. It's part of the same floor and it slides down here.
Jordan's King Abdullah has rejected the possibility of any military or security solution in Gaza. In an official meeting with senior politicians at the Royal Palace, King Abdullah said there could be no military or security solution to the conflict between Israel and Palestinians. The monarch was quoted as saying the root cause of the crisis was Israel's denial of the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people. He emphasized the only path to a solution started from Israel recognizing the rights of the Palestinians. King Abdullah also rebuked Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over his announcement that Israel was seeking overall security responsibility for the Gaza Strip for an indefinite period of time. He said any such solution which involved Israel occupying parts of Gaza was simply unacceptable. US President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping will meet on the sidelines of the APEC Summit. This is being held amidst multiple global tensions. The United States has been looking to engage with China, especially after a series of diplomatic and military tensions owing to American allies. China has been looking for assurances from the US that it will not decouple its economy from China. Now, here's what can be expected from this high-profile meeting. President Biden and President Xi Jinping will meet in the San Francisco Bay Area. This will be only their second face-to-face meeting during the Biden presidency. The talks are likely to revolve around trade, Taiwan and fraught US-China ties. The Israel-Hamas war and the Ukraine war are also likely to come up for discussions. Remember, earlier the US accused China of spying with its weather balloon, which was shot down by its Air Force. Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan had resulted in further strained ties between the two countries. US President Biden wants to re-establish military-to-military ties with China days before the two leaders are set to meet.
U.S. President Joe Biden will push China to re-establish military ties this week. That's according to White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan on Sunday, ahead of the expected meeting between Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping in San Francisco. In an interview with CBS, Sullivan said that, quote, "The president is determined to see the reestablishment of military-to-military ties because he believes it's in the U.S. national security interest, and that, quote, we need those lines of communication so that there aren't mistakes or miscalculations or miscommunication." Later, speaking with CNN, he also said Biden would seek to, quote, advance the ball with Xi on military ties, which he considers a, quote, top agenda item, but declined to provide further details. Beijing has largely severed military-to-military communication with Washington after then U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan in 2022, the democratic island China claims as its own. Prior to the rupture over Pelosi's visit, the U.S. and Chinese militaries cooperated on exercises and training, such as this joint humanitarian relief drill in southwest China in 2016. Biden is set to meet Xi on Wednesday at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in California. It will be only their second in-person meeting since Biden took office in 2021.
Donald Trump Jr. testified for a second time in his father's civil fraud trial, focusing on what he described as the appeal of his father's real estate holdings. During the proceedings, attorneys from New York, Attorney General Letitia James' office objected to the questioning, but the judge overruled their objections. The trial revolves around allegations of civil fraud against the former U.S. president.
Donald Trump Jr. returned to the witness stand on Monday in his father's civil fraud trial in New York, this time to answer questions from his own lawyers. Don Jr., along with his father, brother Eric Trump, and their real estate empire, are accused of inflating the values of properties and other assets by billions of dollars to secure better deals with lenders and insurers. On the stand, Donald Trump Jr. spoke at length on the history and qualities of his father's properties, as his lawyer walked him through a slideshow of the Trump portfolio, in an apparent bid to show the high valuations were justified. He also talked about the, quote, sexiness of his father's real estate projects, saying they attracted licensing deals with other developers who wanted to emulate his style. Lawyers for New York Attorney General Letitia James's office objected to the line of questioning, but the judge disagreed.
It's a disgrace that this is happening right now, but I think we'll make our points, we'll make our case, and we'll go on from there.
The lawsuit by James seeks at least $250 million in damages, as well as restrictions that would effectively bar Trump and his two adult sons from New York's real estate industry.
This is a case that should have never been brought. It's a case that should be dismissed immediately.
Trump, the frontrunner for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination, has already taken the stand and has denied wrongdoing. He accuses James, an elected Democrat, of political bias. The New York case is largely about damages, as the judge has already ruled that Trump and his company fraudulently inflated asset values. Trump, meanwhile, faces a slew of legal troubles as he campaigns to challenge Democratic President Joe Biden in the 2024 election, though none have diminished his commanding lead over his Republican rivals.
Former British Prime Minister David Cameron has re-entered British politics, taking on the role of Foreign Secretary in a notable return after a 7-year hiatus following the aftermath of the Brexit referendum, when he had to step down. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's cabinet reshuffle saw Interior Minister Suella Braverman replaced and James Cleverly, the former Foreign Secretary, stepping into her position. Cameron's re-emergence marks a significant development given his departure following the outcome of the Brexit referendum. During his tenure as Prime Minister, he conducted 3 referendums on the UK's exit from the European Union. In 2010, Cameron assumed the role of the youngest Prime Minister in England in 2 centuries. However, due to an insufficient majority, his party formed a coalition government with the Liberal Democrats. The former Prime Minister admitted that his new position as the UK's Foreign Secretary was not usual, but he hoped that his experience in office would prove to be useful.
Well, I know it's not usual for a Prime Minister to come back in this way, but I believe in public service. The Prime Minister asked me to do this job, and it's a time where we have some daunting challenges as a country, the conflict in the Middle East, the war in Ukraine, and of course, I hope that 6 years as Prime Minister, 11 years leading the Conservative Party gives me some useful experience and contacts and relationships and knowledge that I can help the Prime Minister to make sure we build our alliances, we build partnerships with our friends, we deter our enemies, and we keep our country strong. That's why I'm doing the job, and I'm delighted to accept. I've disagreed with some individual decisions, but politics is a team enterprise. I've decided to join this team because I believe Rishi Sunak is a good Prime Minister doing a difficult job at a hard time. I want to support him. I'm a member of the team, and I accept the Cabinet collective responsibility that comes with that.
Chaos ensued after a part of the Santa Monica Freeway in Los Angeles was engulfed in a massive fire. Police officials say the fire was caused by arson. The freeway has been shut indefinitely, causing a massive headache for thousands of commuters.
Officials say a massive fire that damaged a stretch of an important freeway in Los Angeles was caused by arson. An elevated stretch of the Santa Monica Freeway was engulfed by flames on Saturday. Now what locals call the 10 has been shut down indefinitely, a headache for hundreds of thousands of commuters. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass on Monday made a point of saying that no connection had been found between the fire and a nearby encampment of unhoused people.
We know that the origin of this is arson. We do not know other information. There is no reason to assume that the origin of this fire or the reason this fire happened was because there were unhoused individuals nearby.
Bass said 16 people found in the encampment had since been placed into housing. The state fire marshal, meanwhile, declined to give details about how investigators reached their conclusion of arson or how the fire was ignited. Officials say the flames damaged several support columns and the freeway deck. Some 300,000 vehicles travel the Santa Monica Freeway every day. Detours are expected to snarl the already congested downtown LA traffic.
A lot of people go on the 10, so we're all having to make adjustments, having to pack the 101 that's already packed, and then maybe even going to a 210. It's just a headache.
It's been horrible. I just am coming from school, and it's been a lot all together, all collided.
Governor Gavin Newsom issued a state of emergency in Los Angeles on Sunday to expedite the repairs to the freeway. He vowed to get it reopened as soon as possible.
As Iceland braces for a potential volcanic eruption, signs of underground magma pressure have become more evident, causing roads to crack and buildings to buckle. The south of the country experienced 900 earthquakes on Monday. Iceland's Met Office has observed that the magma is moving closer to the surface.
Roads have begun to crack and buildings buckle under the pressure of underground magma as Iceland prepares for a possible volcanic eruption. 900 earthquakes hit the south of the country on Monday, with tens of thousands of tremors reported in the region of Reykjanes in recent weeks. Scientists began to worry as lava started to head to the surface, as Matthew James Roberts from the Icelandic Meteorological Office explains.
This intrusion was 15 kilometers long, and to begin with, there were thousands of cubic meters per second of molten rock magma coursing into this intrusion. This intrusion now sits just below the Earth's surface, so a molten sheet of magma over a distance of 15 kilometers, and it in fact stretches through and beneath the coastal town of Grindavik.
All 3,800 residents of the town were evacuated from their homes over the weekend. Most have been able to find accommodation with friends and family, with only 50 to 70 in evacuation centres. Local Hans Vera says they are used to earthquakes, but not like this.
It was always shaking. So there was no way to get sleep or nothing. So we were like a little bit like, this is not normal anymore.
Evacuees were able to return home briefly to retrieve belongings, but only via an escort.
Huge cars from the rescue team, 20 policemen, all blinking lights. It's just unreal. It's like a war zone or something. It's really strange.
Authorities fear the underground magma will pierce the Earth's surface and potentially hit the coastal town and a geothermal power station.
And the major worry from a hazard and risk perspective is that the magma could come to the surface and produce a fissure eruption, a Hawaiian-style lava-producing volcanic eruption, and this could produce fissures over a long length.
The Reykjanes Peninsula is a volcanic and seismic hotspot, with volcanic activity occurring as recently as July. In March 2021, lava fountains erupted spectacularly from a fissure in the ground over 2,000 feet long.
We have this tremendous uncertainty now. Will there be an eruption, and if so, what sort of damage will occur?
The centuries-old Japanese tradition of cormorant fishing, intertwined with the economy built around it, is now facing threats from the growing unpredictability of weather patterns due to climate change. Take a closer look as to how climate change is shrinking the Japanese fishers' catch.
In Japan, cormorant fishing is seen as the ideal way of catching the Ayu river fish and has become a popular tourism spectacle. But fisherfolk there say the changing climate is shrinking their catch as they worry for the future of their centuries-old tradition. These Japanese fishermen are catching Ayu sweetfish using a traditional fishing practice called ukai. Each of these strings are leashed to a cormorant who do the actual fishing. They're trained to heed the human fisher's commands. The seabirds catch the fish that are darting away from the flames, and the leash on their necks and bodies keeps them from swallowing the larger sellable fish. The master fisherman then coaxes the birds to release the fish into a bucket. Yoichiro Adachi is one of just 48 people in Japan who still practice ukai, a ritual once common in Japan with a version also practiced in China.
Once it gets dark, when the sun has gone down enough that you can't see the ground and the sweet fish are sleeping, you raise up a flame and start ukai fishing. When you do that, it surprises the sweet fish, so they start moving around trying to get away. That's how the cormorants get them.
Adachi is the 18th generation of his family to be a master cormorant fisherman in the Odze township north of Nagoya. His family has long been a supplier of the sweet fish delicacy for Japan's imperial household. But times and the climate are changing. As the planet warms, weather patterns are becoming more unreliable. Heavier rains are making the once calm Nagara River more prone to flooding. And the 48-year-old fisherman says the problem is not just a change in water levels.
In the past, there were only big boulders, but now they're small. The sand and gravel has increased, and along with that, the sweet fish have gotten smaller too. That's my feeling.
Gifu University river engineering professor Morihiro Harada says the sand and gravel are coming from flood prevention works.
Due to
the warming of recent years, major flooding has become much more likely. So the managers of the river have rapidly increased the pace of river improvement works. The sweetfish like to eat algae attached to large rocks, but the rocks are being covered up with gravel and sand, so the sweetfish can't get to them.
The changing climate is also hitting the ukai industry in Gifu City downriver from Odze, which has turned to tourism for more income. Fleets of boats allow visitors to eat and drink as they watch the master fishers and their birds. But the chairman of an economic development body known as Organ, Yusuke Kaba, said the unpredictable weather is causing a growing number of cancellations. He even recalled times when tour boats were washed all the way to the mouth of the Nagara River. To adapt to the challenges, his group is now trialing a more luxury viewing deck with trainee geishas and other traditional performers. But as the river temperature rises to a high of 30 degrees Celsius or 86 Fahrenheit, which can delay the spawning period of the Ayu by a month, the future of the sweetfish and the 13th-century-old ukai tradition remains at the mercy of climate change.
Prithviraj Singh Oberoi, affectionately known as Biki, redefined Indian hospitality and put it on the global map. As a son of the late Rai Bahadur, M.S. Oberoi, the founder of the Oberoi Group, he played a pivotal role in shaping an industry now acknowledged as amongst the world's best. PRS Oberoi not only transformed the Indian hospitality sector but emerged as a visionary leader whose unwavering dedication in pursuit of excellence propelled the Oberoi Group to international acclaim. With a net worth of $460 million, his impact extended far beyond corporate success. The nation and India's hospitality sector bids farewell to an icon who changed the face of the industry. The leading light of Indian hospitality has passed away at the age of 94. That's it from me for now. Thanks for watching.
ChatGPT. It can generate codes and human-like responses through text, write stories, and do a lot more.
I work in a newsroom with anchors, researchers,